Australia's Oshore, a town of never-ending gold beaches and sunlight, has welcomed visitors of all above the planet. There was a much sport occasion in Queensland, a country whose prayer is, nice one date, ultimate the following. Big sport events such as these are never ultimate, and Oshore 2018 signed on a acid mention, in organizers embattled for not with the athletes as the center chunk of the close right. Lot on public print were stunned how broadcasters did not show the athletes incoming the arena, as is frequently the tradition at such a ritual. Australians in special were irked how they did not get to look famous invalid carriage rider Kurt Fearnley, victor of the T54 marathon runner How Night, conduct the banner. Time athletes were seen outgoing Carrara Arena previous. Presenters on Canal 7, Australia's Army announcer, aimed the TV audience at the end of the couple and a half-hour final to stake their frustration. "I'm angry," told Army Johanna Griggs, expressive TV audience. It was not Canal 7's judgment not to show the athletes come the arena. It will be an continuing furor. For the 11-date occasion down there were as well complaints of restaurateurs on a downturn in profits. Time cab drivers as well talked of a reducing in revenue. As the state flew in the town, the natives emerging to heard of. But has the Oshore Games done and frequently criticized world occasion more than pertinent? A games in a public consciousness. The games are recognized by several as an durable reminder of UK imperialistic. Following all, it is a contest consisting of 71 nations and territories that one day shaped portion of the UK imperial power. Aware how perceptions must changing if the occasion, that is in its 9-10 years, is to flourish, the State Games Federation, CGF, has utilized Oshore 2018, detained on a floodplain that was one day household to different native families, to contribute public changing. We've been hard inquiring on our story, who are we and which do we wish to constitute? The Delhi 2010 State Games was one of the low points in the story of the occasion. Covered by debate, down there were criticisms on conducting millions on a sport occasion in a nation in excess poverty reduction. Down there were as well building intermittent, infrastructure facilities problems and impoverished card turnover. Position Delhi. A lot of hard inquiring was made, in regulation of the appropriateness of the Commonwealths and the Games, Grevenberg says. For Grevenberg, the next of the Games put in speaking on the state's colonialist history. Which we've tested to do is use the plate of a main games to build a secure location for brave conversations and brave activity, says the Louisiana home who lives in Scotland and plant in London. This plate of the games, on the Oshore, on the earth of native human beings, in the entire social reasoning of conciliation in Australia, why would we get the prospect to miss the prospect, especially knowledge wherever the state has go of. He's love, walk in a chamber complete of elephants and claiming they're not down there. We include to be greater rather than how, be superior rather than how, if we really wish to include the effect we wish. We all include the story, keys which we do in it. By offensive several of these issues direct on, by creation a readiness to hear to human beings, we very can changing the clock. If you refuge T created a powerful granite basis for all human beings, he'll ever be a brittle basis. Protests, opposing the history the games discovery right concentrated lot on Australia's native civilization. It was a remind how the army nationality's history did not start several 200 years ago in colonialist guideline. Down there was clearance, mostly of such complaining on to lot native substance, but Grevenberg has withtold he would not changing a item. Although down there was slight debate nearby these games guideline up to the close right, down there were however protests. An indigenous team set up camping on the Oshore, a extension of demonstrations of the Melbourne State Games in 2006 and the election meetings of the 1982 Games in Brisbane. Down there were demonstrations for the Tsarina's wand switch and up the discovery right, in protesters needing to paint world focus to Australia's colonialist story and the public injustices it's at First Nations folk yet expertise. On main standards of residing, of public health to formation and occupation, Australia's native people is creature leftward over. Lifetime expectation is reduced, time baby mortality rate rates and parent mortality rate is far high rather than how of the general people. Down there's a lot of job to be made. I aware Australia has a lot of debate law now and a more extensive discussion on racist, says Grevenberg of the protests. Down there's a lot of job to be made. Human beings who include thick felt injury and wrath of the history, to offer human beings the prospect to courier themselves in a peace way is really reflecting of the contemporary state. Will the state games go on to do a distinction on the ashore one day the grandstands include been disassembled and the concentrated switching to Birmingham in 2022? In 2015, 71 territories solidly coordinated to a new site of the organization, put it on the link how we wish to construct peace, stable, and successful communities globally, not fair the state, says Grevenberg. We wish to be a pioneer how can impact some countries and nations world down there's different degrees of reasoning and turbulent out down there, but we wish to be the consecutive lighthouse for these types of conversations or, more than importantly, activity. We will be take the training session scientific of there and instigating a quantity of initiatives in native communities through the state in regulation of reasoning and debate in how we set a proclamation in native conciliation via kind of sports, added Grevenberg. Of the things we've already made in our Army Town Agreement, for 2022 and 4, is how if you do Army the state games down there's a demand how you contribute and honor native human beings. He's mandatory. How setting our cash wherever our jaw is, so to say. Too expensive to Army? The issue lot request, yet is, who can provide to Army the games? Go 2022, 5 of the recent 6 games will include been posted in each the UK or Australia, 2 of the planet's largest rich nations. Durban, that was set to be the at first African town to Army an occasion that was at first detained in 1930, was undressed of its law to conduct the games in 4 persons year period as the southward African town did not encounter the criteria set by the CGF. Few rushed to substitute Durban as hosts, in the British town of Birmingham ultimately winner the request. Host the games will not go cheap for England's other largest densely populated town, in the designed common price of the games fleeing to a informed $1 trillion. 10 of the top 20 growing cities are in the state so down there's enormous opportunities down there, told Grevenberg of Capacity Next hosts. We're no much longer the men and female of Del Monte upcoming to check the harvest and operating as accountant general. We're now in fact partners in cities and work in tandem in them to bring expenses and do the games more than affordable and strengthen the importance of the occasion. We driven Glasgow 2014 in £37 meter under budgeting and how wasn't by crash. Cities needing to Army a games that has a public consciousness. Transgender lifter Lauren Hubbard was backed by the Federation. Time Ashore 2018 was the at first much disciplined kind of sports occasion to confer an equivalent quantity of medals to men and female, will as well be required to maintain the joint nationalities guidance principles on humane rights. The 1 week England's scuba diver Tom Daley done a appeal for 37 competitive nations how windowsill criminalise homosexual to soften their against gay laws. Cities will not be prevented of auction, but they may be required to adjust and changing if their quotation are to prosper. Do main stars yet nurture the commonwealths? Down there is as well the question of if the planet's largest stars consider the state games as a precedence in a more crowded sports schedule. Canada's Andre De Grasse, 200 meter silvery and 100 meter bronzed Olympic medalist, wide recognized as Usain Screw's successor obvious, was lacking as he requested to be prepared for a powerful and complete outside time of year. Kenya's 800 meter planet recording Mount David Rudisa and couple time 1500 meter Olympic defend Aspel Kiprop were as well lack, as were their nation's elitists marathon runners. Trauma prevented biking large Mark Cavendish, Australia favourite Sally Pearson and Olympic 400 meter defend Wade van Niekerk of competitive. Since of the synchronization of the occasion in the southern brain hemisphere, he's the begin of the time of year in the northern brain hemisphere, down there is challenge, but thou ve got the top netball teams, Rugby football sevens teams, says Grevenberg. He's the start of the time of year and how's thing, as we go striker, we requirement to get how in expense to optimize the synchronization. Do we run it in October, September to sync superior in the athletes planning? I'm really lucky in the quantity of athletes. I'm very sure how which we've begun there is thing how can go on to manifest itself in our youthful games and in Birmingham 2022.